Что вы пришли на мой доклад. Меня зовут Александр Александров, судя по тому, что здесь написано. Ой, куда полезно. Вот, и вот моя фотография. Специально оделся так, как фотография, чтобы меня легко было узнать. Тема, о которой мы будем говорить, она затрагивалась она пыталась быть затронута Days-26, потом она была затронута на 24-й.
Going to cover has been SQA Days 22, 23, 24, and 25. So what I'm about to do is depth and substance to what I told you earlier on. Let's ask about wanted to elaborate. So it's kind of a follow-up presentation. We are also a silver SQA Days. This is our stand. I will tell you what we do. Any questions you might have, you can ask now or in the lobby today and tomorrow until 5 p.m. So this is second slide. Nothing has changed but the numbers. We will start from afar. Exhaustive testing, what is it? We'll look at it from technological perspective and economic perspective, and then we'll see what advantages and disadvantages it has, what pitfalls might be hit, and how to avoid them. Exhaustive testing is something that you might read about in books. It's a well-developed concept, but still people debate about it. Not managers who don't know or are clueless about it, but rather peers. I mean, testing is not possible that has become prevalent in the Russian-speaking segment. Full testing is impossible except some trivial cases. What do you mean it's physically not possible? Then how possible? How can a trivial be different from non-trivial? But let's try to figure out, have we ever had real situations or real projects where exhaustive testing has been a case? There are additional arguments, theorems. If you add two integral numbers on your calculator, it cannot be considered exhaustive. If so, then do with the expectations of customers. Customers expect to receive defect-free application. What will we do with top managers who negotiated with the customer, said we are not find all defects, don't you worry. But it is engineers made by the top managers. Engineers are motivated in their KPIs, and the team will be put for any defects that will be found. Test team, course of fixing, feeding the guts Well, eating the guts, then, well, I remember the oath that I took 69 about contempt comrades. So, and it came to me. The question is, everyone should be doing their best. I mean, we've tested every. We had what to test with. We had human resources and so on. So we did end up testing some stuff because we ran out of time. We ran out of resources. We ran out of something. Had we had more, it would have been peachy. But we didn't have that extra something. We were not given it. Since a project is always something with limitations, I'm sorry for preaching to the choir, but I'm pretty sure that there are still people interested in that. We need to plan the focused nature of our work. We will plan our efforts. We will do effort evaluation for testing. I mean, I'm pretty sure you know how it works, number of hours put in. But we are told you will get only 3. Oh, maybe 5 if we are lucky. There are reasons for reducing estimates or for increasing estimates. Let's say we reviewed a process and we believe it needs to be increased. Then we received a certain estimation of labor effort. First, we need to test mission critical, then something less important, and then not at all. It's just that the customer wants everything and wants it now. They start swearing, they start throwing things at you. I know such customers. Or if it's a tendering process which you lose simply because you were honest. And the team, another team that is going to fail, has been awarded business based on a lie. But we were honest to God. We find all the defects, but all 98%, not 100. And the other team found 95, not 100, but they were awarded business. And then an interesting fact comes to light. The more resources we are afforded, the more we plan for testing, the better. The more testing we do, the closer we get to the exhaustive testing, which does not exist. So the question is, are we doing the right thing here? So let's talk about that. This is a famous picture that if you don't invest, you'll get a lot of defects, but the cumulative, whether you invest early on, invest in the middle, or still out as an expensive financial investments which will be considered the truth middle. Not from technological point of view, but rather from an benefit or a cost-effective point of view. And this is the main difference. You can do everything in development. Two versions of test. First is estimating, planning, and seeing if your plan has been followed, if deviations occur, and version 2.0 is effective use of allocated manpower versus the plans. For example, we're not going to do test cases as things were, or we're not going to test at all, or we're going to think one way or another. In some situations, combining testers cost effectiveness is the key. So do as much as possible for the customer. These are the case studies I last time, comparing 1.0 with 2.0. Version 1.0 deals with the shortage of man-hours and people. Version 2.0 relies on qualifications of testers. We had a certain number of hours divided by days, divided by units, being people or testers, and then they give us whatever they have. And we have to make peace with that. Use of checklists instead of test cases. If it's the product company, if people for years hone the same functionality, they don't freaking need those checklists because they know everything by heart. But if this person quits and a newcomer comes in, what you gonna do? What will happen to your business? It's gonna be an imminent risk, but this is no longer a process. Using user data, because there are confidentiality matters involved, you need to be able to show advantages and disadvantages, because the key message of version 2.0 is cost efficiency. This is a value-added quality of a product that we deliver. Case number 2, testing from fence and until lunch. I mean, we did manage to test some stuff, but then we finished halfway through and ran out of time.
It's not discovering another continent when I speak about that we have to apply the qualification of the testers who might have come from the business sector. Case number 3. Oh, what if? There'll be more cases that I told you last time. For instance, we've been given everything, but unfortunately, well, there's nobody in the market available except for the juniors. We got the juniors, we plan test design. Can anybody show me a junior who knows how to do test design? I've never seen such one before. Well, I'm not that young. I've been many years working in this sector. Okay, a junior could write something which resembles a test case, but it is not. It is something that cannot exist. I have seriously been shown test cases containing one step only. What's the point? But such things happen. If the project is really needed, then you have to engage some shadow resources, some test mentioned what explanatory testing is done with the support of the analytical team, if they're able to do it, of course. Automation, which is called record playback, is also a good tool. Maybe you will not like it, being automation testers, but automation test tools could be used without writing unified single code. You record, you play back. You ask the user to write down the most complicated procedure, then please reproduce it until your application starts working. But how could you note it down if the calculator works that it can only add 2 and 2 in the amount, get 5, but you have to get 4. But there are tools that allow editing and calculation. The app is not yet working, and the device is working. However, not a single code line has been used. Such a tool is already accessible for the juniors who have been just found among the students. The tramp, somebody was washed, brushed, cleaned, and they will be testing in a good manner, at least under the economy 1.0. But you either try to grow good testers out of them. Case number 4. Let's put it back for later. Situation is quite real. Well, imagine we don't have testers, or we have them but they're weak or they're creepy. What? Let's limit ourselves with the unit testing. Except the fact that we have 1 year support in the project. During the whole of this time, we'll be able to detect all the defects and correct them if the customer is ready to tolerate such planning of our activities. If we planned it that way, that first we deliver raw product with further improvements during the work support period, such things happen. But if your product is very dynamic, everyone will be saying, well, it's agile. But high dynamism of a product has no connection to agile whatsoever. The customer got your product, it falls down every 15 minutes, and he asks you to change it drastically. Well, we can do it. After the changes, we will in the end manage to reach the due quality and the customer will be happy. Case number 5. We can do everything if you pay for it. Our sellers very often tell it. If they would like to fool down the customer may be very romantic and naive. 3 days before the delivery, customer could say, oh, could you please redo the app? That's it. I don't like the app, so you have to redo it all, please. But you can't tell the customer that we will do everything what you pay for. No, we have to marry if we promise to do something, being honest people. And we start to do everything that we promised, facing the consequences. But the fact is that together with the customer, you can say, okay, we can redo. You will get a redone product, but 2 months later. Or you will do a product right now, and within the next 2 months we will redo the product. What is better for you? And then the customer comes. Customer comes not because he wants to pay extra money for something or he doesn't know how to spend it. He comes because he has a need. It's good when you engage the customer in testing, because when the customer sees the product, he starts having completely particular specific ideas, not something based on promises, because the customer becomes aware of the product context. A very important note that I would like to make based on the outcomes of the SQA Days-26. Don't think that if you don't have processes, if you work the way you do, it's the economy 0.2. It is not. The basic difference of economy 2.0 from economy 1.0 is the availability of the guaranteed approach, which will allow us to do what we had promised to. Within the resources and within the time frame that have been allocated for us, everything under economy 2.0 is far beyond the evaluations. All these additional user stories that we could provide the customer with, because this is our case and because under the resources allocated, we find a possibility to work more efficiently. If economy of testing 2.0 doesn't work out, we have a way out. We have a safety way out. Otherwise, if there is no backup parachute, then he might be thinking, oh, I don't need an additional one, I don't need a spare one, it's too heavy. It's all very good, but just it only works once. After this, there'll be nobody to tell you what really happened. And now we're slightly, okay, sorry, the outcomes or conclusions were mentioned there. Now we are coming to the second part of the presentation, which is how to master all these tools. Our experience suggests that it is necessary to train such things as assessment, quality testing, and not only testers should be tested. Then the questions appear, who should we test? Why should we test? Does it make sense to train somebody? Everyone cannot argue the necessity of training. There are a lot of training classes, methodology, support, documentation, etc., but sometimes it doesn't work. Let's analyze why. It happens because some people have lack knowledge of testing, don't know the test process, no possibility to test efficiently, or unwillingness to test efficiently. And if we study why it happens, we can see that the word train doesn't come very often. The key words are that it's necessary to build the process, control the executing parties. If we have the problems with the processes, training, motivation, you see, training covers only one area. The rest is the process first should be built, and it's necessary to realize the reasons. Training is not only knowledge, skills, and competence transfer. Training is also a problem of consulting and audit, because you can teach how to work a big team of testers, but if the business processes are not established, this team will not work effectively. A classical example is when a star team cannot play together and it loses all the time to the team which doesn't have so many stars in, but which are well worked and connected together. Okay. Where there are testers, there are non-testers. We could teach how to test, we could teach how not to test. In the end, based on this matrix, we have 4 fields. Field number 1, everyone is being trained, like designers, automation specialists, developers, testers, etc. Second domain, our colleagues who are not testers must know what testing is. It could be a team, it could be managerial level or supporting personnel who are hiring, like HRs, or the top management level. Of course, they know everything. They're capable to explain to each tester that his or her place is somewhere far beyond in their lamp field, because he's nobody. But at least they have to be trained and taught what to tell and who to tell. Third training domain is tester training, because training testers have to be taught how requirements to tests are set up, how communications, architecture, system requirements are performed. Domain number 4 is for non-testers and non-testing. This is the training in the quality assurance, in the process establishment, and defect management. Defect management has traditionally been considered a duty of testers, which is a big misunderstanding that destroyed many projects when nobody knows how to manage the testing. And then you start running around, postponed, forgot, remembered, then just forgot about everything. Key things. That's why defects management is the basics of teamwork. It's enough to remember that at a certain stage the whole team has one goal, which is manage defects. It means that the team must have similarly good understanding of what defect management system is. but testers are not trained how to do it. There are two key approaches. One of them is called KOT, quality, operation, exactness. Next one is ZUT, which is called the letter stand by for we know, we can do it, we do. More detailed information about training is available if you communicate with me, if you ask me questions during presentation. Also, you can learn more at the Luxoft stand. I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me to deliver presentation. I would also like to thank my SQA Days colleagues who were long time been working together and who work as my reviewers and who review my reports and who support me in my reports. I would also like to thank my colleagues from Luxoft Training, Boris Nazarov, Vladimir Gertson and Natalia Balaberdina, who have not been able to come. We discussed my presentation with them and they supported a lot. And case idea number 4 was proposed to me by Mr. Boris Nazarov. And this is the picture showing where the testers are in their food chain supply. I am available for any questions. If we run out of time, then please welcome to the stand of Luxoft. Thank you. Does anyone have questions? Good afternoon, Alexander. Thank you much for your presentation. I'm attending your presentation for the second time, and I have a feeling that we studied at university and we had a discipline, the philosophy, and I believe that your presentation is actually philosophy of testing. Well, you see, my logic is quite the same. I'm already gray, and of course, I would be ashamed to tell you about the things that I only learned yesterday. It's true, because what you deliver here is quite different. It's a very comprehensive material. But you have been telling us that it's possible to do the complete, comprehensive testing. There are certain tools and methodologies allowing for further improvement. But I have a feeling that at a certain point of time, the customer should say that he or she is satisfied with the current test level. For example, there are 3 testers, they're able to find a certain number of defects and the customer is happy with what it is. Do you have such kind of metrics or KPIs that you used with your teams and which allow to say that the level of testing provided by the team is sufficient and these testers are good ones and those ones are bad ones? Well, you asked quite a multifaceted question, but I'll try to answer it. Just a sec. Well, my answer will take long, but we still have some time. I hope it will be of use. So first of all, such metrics do exist. For example, the density of defects before and after delivery. Then efficiency metrics on testing, quality assurance. Well, if you have not yet heard about this, please attend my trainings. I'm telling about this in them. Does it make sense to evaluate particular teams with the support of such metrics? It's still a big issue because metrics is not a tool for personal evaluation. Experience of the company Virtak proves this because they had KPIs metrics for testers and for developers. However, it was not successful. Well, they tried for the sun to rise in the west and go down in the east, but it didn't work. Eventually, the last thing is that in order the customer says this, the customer should possess process culture. Because good relationship with the customer and customer's attitude it's quite natural that the customer would like to spend less and to receive more. Ideally, to spend nothing and to receive everything. So this requirements may vary depending on the customer's location and mentality, but it all means that the customer is well aware of the fact that such level of testing quality is sufficient. Customer understands it in case the customer pays for the testing. And for the customer, testing is only economic category. The problem is that the defects must be corrected. Correction of a defect costs 1 million and defect costs 10,000. Show me a customer who does such kind of calculation. None of the customer will tell, okay guys, there are 2 bags of cash somewhere. Just take whatever you need and correct. The customers speak different way. They want all the defects to be corrected and corrected for free. That is why it is essential that the communication with the customer is done through their following pyramid. We should tell them we cannot correct everything because it takes too long and it's too expensive. You can search wherever it's possible, but you won't find such a company that can do it. And if a customer tells you, I want everything to be corrected at this stage, okay, we can, but then at the green field there'll be a black hole. So then choose where you would like to have a gap, top, middle, or bottom. So you should establish efficient and viable communication. You just discuss with the customer that you can do something that is most needed for you. Usually all the requirements are collected verbally, and in the answers the customers will be mentioning the business requirements and the personal user stories. Did I answer your question? Yes, you did. Thank you. One more question or some more questions? No? No, there is one. Good afternoon. Thank you for your presentation. You've been talking about the economy and efficiency. But it all refers to the certain functional requirements. But if you talk about security, load, could it be reflected? The logic is very simple. Imagine, and I can bring an example of a dissertation. Once a project required that we tested the performance capacity on the stand. When we calculated the cost, we realized that the stand costs more than the whole project, and we denied providing this kind of tests only for the economic reasons. We mitigated the risk by the fact that Luxsoft had a department that was engaged in website development, and their expertise and their capacity was high. We didn't test performance capacity testing based on the contract only for the economic reasons. However, we completed the project successfully because when we delivered, the project was performing well under the workload. The workload, by the way, was absolutely realistic. I'm not talking about functional requirements. I'm talking about testing in general. That's why it is not really clear for me why we should put functional requirements from non-functional ones separately. I believe that the nature of testing is of such a nature that it should be considered and reviewed together. I see no reason for such a split between functional and non-functional. Anything else? Good afternoon. Thank you for your presentation. It was very interesting. You told us how to work with the team consisting of many testers, but if you're alone and if you're the only tester and you have to do everything, including automation, I'm one of the people who work in the team for quite a long period of time. I know what is done, and I feel that I need more training, more explanation. What should I start with? Well, let me be quite open. Start up with the training in my company, Luxoft, which will be delivered by me. I think it's a good minute for me, it's a good timing for me to invite you to this training. But if you consider other options, there are books, there are articles, there's a lot of information on testing. However, your question considered two aspects. What a single tester in the team or a company should do. But I'll tell you, everything that I was telling you about, it's not about people, it's not about resources, it's about roles. If you're only one person, then I assume 4 hours you're a tester, 2 hours you're a test manager, 4 hours you're a test designer, just for yourself, which means that the processes have to be built very well established. You need to plan your time, control your time, and take into account all fair considerations that are applicable for one person as well. Personal traits, qualification, type of the project, all these facts also must be considered. What if today it's only one person, but in a month there will be 2 people? Today is one particular person, next month it's another person, but the project should be going on smoothly. And what if I would like to have a holiday? Well, of course. What if you refuse to work overtime or maternity leave? Maternity leave is also a kind of the holiday. It's the usual state of things. All these questions are not related to the idea of one person or more people. The second aspect of the question was about what to start with. I'm very serious now, saying that I think your company has not successful projects, right? You mean unsuccessful in terms of testing? Yes, I have a project and I'm responsible for everything. So try to analyze failure root cause analysis and apply everything that you have done in your future actions. For instance, the customer comes and tells you do this, this or that. Will you be able to do it or you won't?
I guess my question is more about an error found 5 years later. Post explain how come I missed that 5 years ago. This is perfectly normal. It might happen, and it's great that 5 years ago you realized that this probability might occur, and you warned the others. But if you said 5 years ago that you will have found all errors, no, I can't say that. Then the question is, why did you miss that error? Simply because I didn't have such profound knowledge of the system, or the amount of functionality has been different. Then it's not an error that you missed 5 years ago, since there was no functionality back in the day. It must have been something else. You said 5 years ago you missed an error. You had functionality, you tested. It wasn't called for, therefore I missed it. If it wasn't called for, if it wasn't relevant, then this picture would work. Because if you found that, then you will have to test this, and due to lack of time, you would certainly have a gap. Risks and priorities is the order of the day. Many thanks for the talk. I'd like to talk about a cost-effective aspect. In terms of costs, we're more or less clear, but what about positive impact of testing on profits? What else could contribute to the red?
Ну, во-первых, когда вам формулируются какие-то ожидания,
First of all, when some
в Люксофте
expectations are formulated to you, Luxoft people have no relation to finances, but they make assessments. When I say I need 3,000 project hours, they say it's too much. It doesn't mean that it means that they don't have money, but 3.5 is quite all right, but make it 2.5.
например, если вы следуете принципам
Also, if you follow 2.0 economy principles, that you might be able to do more versus the estimate that
касаться
you made under economy 1.0.
качества тестирования по
It
сравнению с
also
другими.
has to
Это
do
может быть в инициативе,
greater
в первую очередь,
effectiveness
лояльностью заказчика,
gains
расширение
for
сферы
testing.
взаимодействия с
It may
заказчиком,
result in
демонстрация того,
better
что вы
rapport
сделали для привлечения
with customers,
других
a
заказчиков,
demonstration of what you did to
прочее.
attract other customers, greater market share,
Монетизация,
and
если
all
вы
other
сделали
traditional ways of monetize
что-то лучше, чем ожидалось, об этом надо
your
ответить на глаза,
benefits. This is something you need to show off, because these are the benefits to be monetized. It's hardly to measure. It's hard to measure, but isn't there a direct financial impact? Other than that, I mean, investing in debugging at a later stage would cost more than revealing those defects early on. But are there any other financial benefits? I cannot give you any other examples of the
понимаете, это всегда
top of my head.
по конкретному проекту. Далеко не всегда,
It
вот я не
depends.
говорил, далеко не всегда, вот, грубо
It's
говоря, подход, чем больше тестирования,
not
тем
the
лучше,
case. The more you
он
test,
хороший,
the
потому что
better.
мы от дешевого проекта
Because
переходим к
we
более
transitioned
качественному.
from a cheap project to a better
Если бы
but
вот
more
этот
expensive project.
тренд имел бы какую-то
If this
финальную точку,
trend
да, это было бы
had a
здорово.
leg to stand on, then
Финальной точки нет.
we would
Более того,
reach the final point, but there is no final point.
а
And as the level of complexity increases, the final point is put further and further away with artificial intelligence, software, and so on. This is something that we are beginning to embrace. I mean, I cannot provide you an immediate answer to this. All I had, off the top of my head, I gave you. Approach me at the stand. We'll continue to talk. I might have other ideas. This is a difficult question, and it's a legitimate question. Thank you.